Here is Sean Dursey. Rookie defenseman, Adrian Kempe over the line. Kopitar to Dursey. Oh, he wins it! Oh, what a setup for the game winner!
A game last night, though, there was another big significant event that went down Monday, and that was the NHL trade deadline. A ton of trades were made. Not a lot by our LA Kings, however. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on what you thought the Kings did or didn't do at the trade deadline. So we'll start with you, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I guess you could say, expected that the Kings weren't going to be too busy at the trade deadline. You look at with all the injuries going on and some of the pieces that the Kings already had, it seemed like Rob Blake was just willing to fill the pieces that were missing with some of the young players that they had already in the system. So we've seen that happen with players like Jacob Moviari, Jordan Spence. I mean, just all the defensive injuries that have happened. We've seen some players step up and take those roles and fill those roles actually really well for the Kings. So to see them just bring in just kind of a more of a depth piece to help out in terms of Troy Stetcher at the deadline, it was really not that expected. And it's been I would say that's a good thing for the Kings.
Yeah, not bad. How about you, Ryan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I noted in one of my recent articles that probably expect them to go out and get a depth defenseman. You know, I pegged a couple of guys like Justin Braun, who I think he went to the Rangers for a third-round pick. So they ended up going out and getting Alex Edler's former partner. So I thought he looked great last night. So if Phil stabilized the right side, I guess in terms of the bigger moves, maybe like the Ben Sherratt trade or the Claude Giroux trade kind of set the mark for what Jacob Chikrin might, I guess, fetch at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something out there that the Coyotes were looking for like 3 first-round picks, and I was like, oh, this isn't happening, at least right now.
No, I mean, and that's just, I mean, honestly, I could not believe some of the prices that were being paid at the trade deadline. I thought it was just kind of absolutely ridiculous, to be perfectly honest with you. Some of them. Just I'm going to come around and say it. I'm with you guys. I'm actually glad that the Kings didn't go crazy and, sell the farm, so to speak, to bring in players that were obviously, most of them were rentals. And like you guys said, with the market that was set, forget it. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this until we're blue in the face until June or July. But yeah, I saw that same thing about Chikrin, that all of a sudden the price tag went up, and it's like, oh, just great. Well, not now, folks.
Yeah, I mean, one of the teams that we kind of figured would be selling off everything in Montreal, they had a pretty nice haul of picks, and I think 4 AHL/fringe NHL players come over in that trade. So I thought they did very well for themselves to set themselves up going forward.
Yeah, I think that's right. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought Montreal did really well. Anaheim did pretty well too. And then we'll see what happens with the Dadonov trade. Sounds like it's getting reversed. That's just I don't know. Okay, I'll just say it's shit show altogether.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you look at all the teams that actually brought in new pieces, man, it seems like all the teams that really got what they needed. I mean, you look at Boston; they needed a left shot defenseman. They got Hampus Lindholm. You look at Florida; they were just looking for a Claude Giroux. That just seemed like a marriage that was just going to happen sooner or later. And then they bring in Brent Sherratt. Colorado brought in Arturi Lehkonen and Andrew Cogliano to help out depth pieces, and Josh Manson.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh got Rickard Rakell. So a lot of these teams that really just needed to get better really got better. And I'm just ready for the playoffs to start because that Eastern Conference is just looking wild.
Yeah, that Eastern Conference has been pretty much set since December as far as who's going to get in. Now it's just a matter of seeding. You mentioned that the Dadonov, or however you want to pronounce it now. I mean, how does this happen with modern technology, right? And did Ottawa send that no trade list via carrier pigeon, or what happened here?
It's on cap friendly. How do you
turn around and say, well, we didn't know he had one? Come on.
Yeah, I know GMs use cap friendly because I've seen in pictures before where they've had players come in, sign contracts with cap friendly in the background. So yeah, they're pretty on it in terms of contracts. And just to hear that they did not know that he had a no trade clause was just like, oh, well, like it's like Vegas being Vegas again. I mean, I don't understand why any player would want to go sign with Vegas. They have shown absolutely no loyalty to their players. You look what happens with Fleury. You look what happened. They're willing to gamble it all to bring in Jack Eichel. That's not working right now, and put players in LTIR because they're going to have to get rid of players sooner or later. So who knows what's going to happen there? And now with Dadonov, it's just wild that Vegas just continues to show no loyalty to its players.
But in the previous season, they kind of cast off Nate Schmidt, right, to Vancouver to make room for Pietrangelo.
And he was a fan favorite on the team too.
Well, not only that, to do all that, they have completely depleted their prospect pool.
Mm-hmm. It's a shame.
It really is. Yeah, Jerry Sheffield. It's a shame gift for sure.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you look at, I mean, they're going through all, and it's affecting them because with all the injuries they have no depth, and it's kind of like a good comparison with the Kings because the Kings haven't done that. And look at all the depth pieces that are able to come in and fill these roles and in these injured spots that the Kings really desperately need. And it's really showing the true colors of the Golden Knights right now.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And, we're going to talk about that Kings youth depth in just a second. I just want to kind of wrap this up by saying, in my opinion, unless you are on the cusp contender, and I know this kind of sounds cliche, but I am not a huge fan of my team, making these gigantic deals at the trade deadline. And I'll tell you why. Because you give up a ton to get a player that you could potentially only have for 20 games. And the trade deadline is set so late in the NHL season that player that comes in, this big name that's supposed to put you, take you to the promised land, only has about 15 games to get acclimated to his new team. And how many times have you seen it where teams go out and spend a fortune to bring a player in and it just doesn't work? Either they don't mesh with the team or the team falls flat on their face in the second round because they wreck their team chemistry. So, while it makes for a very interesting weekend, I, for one, am just not a gigantic fan of making the big trades.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings have had some success with that in the past, and Jeff Carter and Marian Gaborik and those kind of cases like that. But no, I definitely understand what you're saying. I mean, I wish it was more like the MLB trade deadline where it's kind of right in the middle of the season where you get to have them for more than 18 games.
Yeah, and we saw it just last season. I think it was Matt Zuccarello who got traded to Minnesota, and then he got hurt, I think, in the first game. So, and then Tyler Toffoli from the Kings to the Canucks, I think he got hurt later on in the playoffs too. So, yeah, it seems like these prices for rentals are just going up and up. So, I mean, I get why Florida and why teams like Florida and Colorado did what they did because they're going for it, and they should. Because I mean, you're waiting for that McKinnon deal to kick in, and if you're Colorado, you're waiting for that Barkov deal to kick in. If you're Florida, so they're pretty much like the NFL team that's on a QB rookie deal. They need to bring in as much as they can to really go for that Stanley Cup championship now.
Right. And it just seems like more and more in the NHL now, teams are like putting less and less stock in their draft picks. Whereas at one time, you were almost into panic mode if you didn't have a lot of draft picks going into a particular draft. But I see like on Twitter, there's a few things floating around about the probabilities of a player from round one playing in 100 or 200 NHL games. And then, going down the list to round 2, round 3, round 4. And I mean those percentages do decrease, of course, naturally. But I think there's a fine line to walk between completely depleting your draft picks and getting those players that you need, because you do have to have a balance. But, like I said, if you're going for it like Colorado or Florida, you know what? You do what you got to do. That's all there is to it.